everybody wants to win. And you have a bunch of these. What was the impetus for even, because it's kind of the first, it's in your face on your website.
It really is. Honestly, I view myself as kind of an iconoclast, if you will.
Okay.
And I've always been a nonconformist. And I've been trying to figure out the best way to have a web presence for, you know, an old guy like me. And for the longest time, I kept struggling with trying to do it the way you see other people do it. And then I realized that's not my voice. That's not me.
Right.
So you just talked about, and that's only been up maybe less than 10 days. That's me.
Yeah.
So I finally decided, you know, people that know me will recognize me in those comments, and people that don't, it gives them an opportunity to see what they might be getting in for if they actually, you know, were so bold as to try to talk to me.
Right, right. And you know, these are words that when you're going on a journey of process improvement, operational excellence, lean, TPS, whatever you want to talk about it, that some of the best champions in organizations really think this way. This is part of their DNA. This is ingrained into their value system. And you're just trying to resurface this, guys. So what we're doing isn't anything new and revolutionary. We're going back to basics, right?
Yeah. I think so. I would call them, and that's what guiding principles. That's the right word for it.
And now, you know, why is it so hard? You wrote the first book. You had some kind of thought process about the first book. What was the driving force that you wanted to publish and share your message with everybody?
I'll tell you what it was. At that time, in the late 80s, early 80s, my business was a custom training design business. And I was turned out I specialized in quality because I was sort of riding the TQM wave.
Right.
And I got contacted by Citicorp, of all things.
Okay.
And they wanted me to do a book for their use internally on process maps. So that, you know, they commissioned me to do that. And then I realized, right after I did that, I realized, you know, I get asked this question a lot. And I said, so I think I'll just do a book on it.
Right.
And so that was the genesis of it. It was prompted by work at Citicorp, and I made it more general, you know, based on my experiences with my clients at that time, in the training work that I was doing. And that's what led to the book for the first time.
And I can imagine, you know, we all see the Citicorp ads all over TV. And you think about Citicorp just in the 80s, on the infancy of credit cards, of all the financial services, of all this financial engineering, and the processes were probably kind of simple, but starting to get really complex, and a lot of different growth modules. So you were in at the infancy. Hopefully you aided in their growth, and they gave you a stock option.
No, nothing like that. It was a one-shot deal. They just were wanting something on process mapping. You know, they had a lot of high-dollar consultants at the time. You know, I started my business in '88.
Okay.
So I was a pretty new kid on the block then. My influences around process mapping came from the work of Gary Rumler.
Okay.
No doubt about it. And you know, I went through all the training he had, and ironically enough, he didn't have any training to teach people how to create the maps that he made so much use of in his work.
Right.
And so I said, okay, well, shoot, I can do that because I'm a training guy, right?
Right.
At the time, yeah.
So, you know, why is it? What's the biggest stumbling block or the hurdle? Because you've seen a lot of organizations in your time doing various processes. Lean is for everybody, whether you're a distributor, whether you're selling, you know, like Citicorp, what do they really make? They don't make widgets. They're financial services. So even municipalities. But what do you find is the key stumbling block for people to even get this visual concept, or even walking this and articulating and showing their process, their mapping?
Well, I think there's a couple of them. First, I should point out that all my 30 years have been outside of manufacturing. So that kind of makes me atypical. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, don't ask me why, right? It's just got that way. But on the other hand, it's been a great experience. So because of that, what I call knowledge work, right? Engineering, sales, finance, those kinds of folks.
Yep.
Because of that, one of the first big stumbling blocks is that a lot of the work they do is not visible.
Yeah.
You can't walk around and see it like you can on a plant floor or a chip like that.
Yeah.
So that's one of the first things. And the other thing is people really have difficulty still after all these years. If you get three people in a room and say, how do you define the word process? You're going to get three really different answers.
Right.
So still, if you're going to map something that you can't even define, that's tough, right? So you're asking somebody to do something that's abstract based on something abstract.
Yeah.
You can't expect people to naturally know how to do that.
So when you walk into an organization, you walk into somebody and you say, you know what, we're going to get into process mapping. What does an experience look like with Robert and your thought process to break down these barriers, to get people to widen their margins, to think a little bit differently, and really, especially in today's world, break down the silos and understand constraints and what people need to know, who do they need to share with, all those things. What does the first day look like for you when you walk into a company?
That's a great question. If I define the first day as scoping out the work, right, then it's going to be trying to get a sense of what their experience has been with other mapping activities. Do they have anything now? How do they document their processes now, or what they call processes? Do they have a definition of process? A lot of people confuse process and procedures. A lot of people do that still. I think the most important thing from a scoping point of view, or first working with a client, is why do you want a process map? What's your intent for using it? Because maps to me are means, not ends.
Okay.
So you don't just wallpaper walls with them, or put them in Visio and have a nice set of maps. The idea is, what are you going to use it for?
Right.
And so I think it's very important to understand the goal, and my bias is just to only map something, if only map some work if you're actually going to apply that map, ideally in real time, to go make a change in the process.
Yep.
Because otherwise it's a map is only as meaningful to me as the people that were there creating it. Any other group of people after that will never have the same understanding as to what that map represents.
Yeah, and that's kind of a key thing, because that gets me to the question, when you do this kind of scoping and just finding out, do companies allow you the liberty to talk to everybody involved in this, or is it generally a C-suite person kind of walking you around and saying, hey, we have to change something here because we either can't keep up or we keep fouling up and have a lot of rework or mistakes?
Yeah, that's another good thing. So for the longest time, when I was doing mapping projects, the sort of default approach was get key knowledgeable people throughout a cross-functional process, get them in a room, and help those people create a map.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my bias, and that's okay, but that's not my first choice anymore.
Okay.
My first choice now is to work with what I call the natural work group. So I want the ground truth people. Right? I don't want somebody that used to do it 2 years ago. I don't want somebody that's the manager of the department. I don't want the only guy that's available. I want the person who's got skin in the game right now, which is why my bias is let's not bother anybody to map a process unless we're going to go improve something about that process that particular individual is going to experience themselves.
Well, usually the stuff percolates up from the ground up, and the people from the top down. So you're getting the guys and gals involved that have skin in the game, right?
Right.
And then you walk that, because you had a statement here about mapping, improve flow from the outside in. So is this part of this outside in approach to looking at how you process map?
Yeah.
So hot client. That was a hot client.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Probably that city clerk calling back again.
Telling you your stocks, you can sell your stocks now. Lockout period's over.
20 years ago, we've been trying to check this out. Okay, so the outside-in principle, what that really, the easiest way to think of that is that you're trying to figure out the item, the work item or the work product that actually exits the workflow or value stream or process.
Okay.
What's the thing that's produced? Who receives that? That's the customer.
Yep.
And what does the customer value about that work item? So those three things are really the heart of the outside-in principle.
Okay, so I jumped over then some principles. I thought that might have been getting... That's the first one in your step once you identify the team.
Well, yeah, that's a project thing.
Okay, project thing. Okay.
For the team is organizing, to do the work.
Yeah.
But the actual principles, the 7 principles I have for improving flow, that's the first one. So you did a good job on it.
Okay. But then you said something else here. You were talking about people, mistake, process, and procedures. And I think sometimes we fall at bay with this one too. Could you describe for our listeners what the acute differences are in process versus procedure?
That's what I get for bringing it up, right?
You shouldn't have brought it up.
Yeah. Let's see. In the book, I talk about boundaries of work.
Yep.
Boundaries and scope. Scope is the amount or quantity of work, and boundaries is sort of the breadth. So when you're defining how much work, how much a given amount of work is, it's a function of the boundaries and it's a function of the scope. Now, so the easiest way, I think, to distinguish between a procedure and a process is in terms of boundaries and scope. The procedure will always have very narrow boundaries and a very narrow scope, typically around a single output. Whereas a process is going to have a much broader scope and wider boundaries. So one is a subset of the other. Right? Procedure is a subset. If you drill down to whatever we call it, activity or step or operation or task, people use those things interchangeably. But whatever that unit of work is, when you drill down on one of those, a portion of that is going to be a procedure. Procedure is going to be how you accomplish one of those steps.
Yeah, and a procedure is an outcome, an expected outcome of your process mapping that you'll develop some standardized and formalized procedures, or do you still go on to just a formalized process?
Yeah, so my bias is to use maps as higher level documents.
Okay.
I don't believe, well, the way I work with clients is I don't use maps to guide performance.
Okay.
If you're going to guide what I call individual performance at the job level,
okay,
that's a procedure, that's a job aid, that's standard work, that's work instructions.
Yep.
It's those kinds of documents. The process map or value stream map is very different. It's higher level, and it's going to give me an end-to-end view. It's going to provide context, not how-to, but context. How does this work fit in to a given process or value stream? And I mentioned 3 different contexts in the book that I think everybody ought to know if they're going to be doing this kind of work.
Why don't you share those with us, the 3 different contexts?
So the first one is the customer value context. So in other words, I need to know how my work impacts or contributes to what the customer values. That's the first one. The second kind of context is what I call part whole. So within any given process, how does one part relate to upstream and downstream parts?
So that's called part whole, W-H-O-L-E.
Yes.
Part whole. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I'm a big organization of systems kind of thinker.
Yep.
So part whole thinking is critical to understand, how something fits in and affects something else.
So that's like the gestalt. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole. You're looking at the part and how does it fit into the whole ecosystem or the whole value stream of what we're doing.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay.
And the third one?
Every organization has an order to delivery or an equivalent, what I call sort of That's the heart of every organization's business.
Okay.
And so the third context is, how does the work that I'm working on relate to that big order to delivery value stream, if you will?
Yep.
And so it's either a part of it, it contributes to it, or it contributes to something else, or you really ought to be looking for another job.
And these concepts are they don't mutually, do some organizations with these three contexts, does everybody have the same mix of context, or are some more organizations more context heavy in one of these arenas than others? Is this like a third, and a third, or it depends on what area you're servicing customers in?
Okay, so I don't think any organization that I've ever worked with has any of those contexts explicitly defined before I get there.
Oh, okay.
Unless they are very far along in a lean transformation, and then if you can trace the flow of a product through the plant through one or more value streams, then that context is going to qualify for a couple of the two, maybe 2 out of 3, right?
Okay, yeah.
But again, remember, I do knowledge work. So, in knowledge work, people don't have those contexts in mind at all. I would be shocked if someone had that, unless they had just gone through, some training where they were asked to identify their customer for the work they do, for example.
Right.
And you happen to hit them the next day.
They know it.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be written down. It wouldn't be explicit. Right? It would have been because of an activity they did the day before.
And as you're talking about these contexts and everything, Robert, and the people that I speak to around the country and everywhere that start a lean journey, they always hit like a 7-year mark, 5-year mark, where it becomes stale, where they wonder how to keep it fresh, if they stuck to it from the beginning. And I think this is the mental work that you're talking about, the operational work, because lean in the beginning is so much low-hanging fruit, so many point solutions. Yours isn't about point solutions. Yours is about looking at, like you said here, the part and the whole. Lean is about the part and the whole. Yeah, I'm looking at the part here, but how does it fit into the whole? So, is this kind of helping to speed people over that speed bump in lean where they say, okay, we did all this this Kaizen point solution, but what's our common thread that holds this company together, and how do we get the knowledge work going?
So
do you understand my question? Because we're working on a huge operational system here where everybody is doing brain work. And sometimes you just can't see that brain work happening for months and months and months.
Exactly. It's not real time.
It's not real time. No. You can go out and Kaizen a work area, Kaizen a shipping dock. You see it happen, boom, 5S it, do whatever, do a SMED. But when you're into operational stuff, it is agonizing.
Yeah, and I think that's why I think it's important to have some kind of, not just a mental model, which you picked up on very astutely, but some sort of physical model, paper model, like a value stream map or a process map, or some other way to depict what those important contexts are for the part of the business that you're working with. There's a principle called true north, in lean, and to me, that order to delivery value stream and the focus on the customer is the true north.
Right.
And so people have to know how to orient themselves to that true north and how their work fits into it. And you keep coming back to that. And until people are able to internalize and go, wow, everything I do, it really needs to benefit the customer. And if it doesn't, then, it's costing money, it's not making money.
And when you say keep coming back to it, again, going back off of my personal experience, is that people think you come back to it for a week or 10 days. I'm talking about a year, maybe even 2 years. And the rest of eternity, that true north is kind of the core of your DNA. It's why we get up in the morning in our organizations, because we all work to that mandate. The true north may wiggle a little after a year, 2 years, but it's still in alignment with that initial picture. Do you feel the same thing?
Yeah, and that comment triggers 2 or 3 things, right?
Yeah.
to me, a lot of what the countermeasure is for that is making sure that there is an effective management / improvement system in place.
Okay.
At the end of an engagement, right? Because if people think in terms of improvement projects or rapid improvement events or Kaizen events, that may be popular, but what we really want is a relentless drive to drive out waste and improve flow, which never ends.
Right.
And if you go in saying that to a client or customer, you're probably not going to get the business. It sounds like you're trying to be on retainer for the rest of your natural life.
You're gonna be an Occupy movement in their facility.
Exactly. There you go. So the way to deal with that, I think, partly is you have to give ongoing responsibility for ongoing improvement to science-specific roles and equip those roles, to align a bunch of other things like the measurement system, the reward system, and all that kind of stuff, to make sure that it actually creates the conditions under which that type of philosophy can prosper.
Right. So, I've been jumping around a little, and I want to get back. Your seven principles, that's really the building block for, all the knowledge work. Does. And one of the things, I feel grateful for growing up, a lot of my friends were martial arts experts, shoot fighters, taekwondo, spent a lot of time with them. And flow is in any athlete. If you think about professional athletes as well, they have flow or game on. They call it, you got my game on, or just do it. Michael Jordan, Air Jordan, all these, Kareem, all these guys, got my game on. And this is the mindset that we need to get in at our work areas too, is that we have a flow. Okay, I don't know what flow is, but help show me this and make it visible. So let's go back and tell me the takeaways. right? Basically from who's feeding them and who they're feeding. But their circle of concern is the whole organization and the true north. So where am I looking at this, and do I look at this differently along the whole process?
Okay, so I go back to the three contexts.
Yep.
And that's the mental model.
Be cool and use some big words.
Oh, I think that's good. I think that's good. The other thing is that, again, when you ask people, they're going to give you a response. It's better to observe them.
Yeah.
Right? You say, walk me through it. And, of course, you did mention, well, what happens if it's a task that's performed infrequently or takes a lot of time to do and they're not doing it on the day you're there?
Yep.
Then you have to say, well, walk me through it. Show me what comes in, show me what comes out.
Yeah.
What kind of stuff do you do, right? And then you put that together as best you can into some sort of model that they then that communicates to them what they told me.
Correct.
Right?
Yep. Okay, and then the next one is wouldn't that be part of the flow? And that's where we got to have people look at stuff, or how do you do something like that?
Yeah. So touched on a couple things. It would be part of the flow, especially the situation that you mentioned. That one's easier to come up with measures.
Okay, because it's in front of you.
Yeah, and people are. That's pretty tangible and relatively complete in terms of not having to talk to a bunch of other people to get the understanding of what's going on there. Okay. So yeah, wait time is one. Completeness and accuracy is huge. The customer puts the order in. They want to do it once and only once, and they expect it to be done right the first time. That's where the complete and accurate stuff comes in. They don't want it to, they want it to be easy to do, and so on and so forth. It's a walk-in. I don't know if that means they give it to you verbally and you write it down, or whatever that process happens to be. So
what's one that you're describing? I'm trying to think of, and I'm the manufacturing guy. You're the knowledge guy. So I'm trying to think of what kind of thing is really hard to understand that flow and measure what matters to the customer. What can you give us an example of for those the manufacturing people that don't understand this concept? Because we must have them in our organizations and we don't even know it yet.
Yeah. So here's what you mentioned and why it's easier is at the boundaries. It's a customer-facing task, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a touch point of the customer. Customer touch points are typically a little bit easier to measure than the stuff inside, right? So maybe you order something, but maybe that triggers some work that purchasing has to do. Purchasing now is inside, and they have to do something else. They're not talking to the customer. They're dealing maybe with suppliers, and maybe they're dealing with quantity discounts or something like that. But from the customer who just placed that order, he doesn't care about buying it in a large lot, and this cares about his order and only his order.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's going to be understanding how that order that was entered triggers other things throughout the value stream is where the challenge comes in. And then you have to trace that, literally, like staple yourself to the order and trace the path all the way through until how it manifests itself, when it manifests itself, where it manifests itself, all the way down to the whatever the item, which might be order fulfilled in that particular instance. And it's the other customer touch point, right?
Right.
Yeah, the final touch point. So it's going to be something, the ones that are hard, like purchasing might be hard. Engineering work is really hard for a lot of folks because they are typically, I've done a lot of work with aerospace companies. And they're extremely engineering intensive. You get engineers together, very bright people, but they think in terms of I have a problem to solve, a task to complete, a report or an analysis to do to reach a conclusion. That's how they think about the work. That's typically what the work is that they do. So that analysis, let's say we do an analysis of just say an analysis.
Right.
And so the question is, who uses that analysis? And what does it support? Which value stream? Which item? What's the purpose of that analysis?
Well, this goes back to what do I need to know? Who do I need to share it with? Kind of that basic.
Yeah, it is basic like that. But because people have in particular in aerospace, but not limited to aerospace, there's a project and program focus, not a process focus. That's very different. So they're thinking one-off tasks to be completed. That's a project, right? For a program. Process is ongoing. I do all different kinds of analyses, or I do the same type of analyses for multiple projects and programs. But it takes a while to make that visible to people and help them understand, the intersection of process and project.
So they take on it's like taking on the new day. Every day is a new day, but they're really doing they're really doing calculations, process analysis, and it may be for different materials, different combustion, whatever their parameters are. And you say, guys, you can systematize what you're doing. Just take a look at this. You have 4 or 5 value streams if we break this down that go through here. So let's look at these processes and take some time, take some, all the things that we do in Lean to save money, to get to our end customer that much faster.
That's right. And that's why I say that I personally don't like to undertake that kind of work unless, with an engineer especially, unless that engineer is involved with understanding why it's important for that work, at that time, for him to spend his time on thinking about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So if he's not part of the natural work group for what it is I'm trying to improve, it's too abstract to him.
Yeah, I have a really good joke about how many engineers does it take to operate a calculator. But I can't tell you the punchline because the ASME will get after me.
Oh yeah, we don't want that.
No.
Okay.
But anyway, box is overflowing. I can see him saying, you know what? I always wait on Ed for this stuff. He's my constraint. Now all of a sudden they become passive aggressive with this. They blame it off on somebody else instead of understanding that maybe they're the inhibitor of flow because the pieces that they passed on, he has to spend an extra amount of time working on because he didn't get what he needed.
So one of the biggest and most prevalent types of barriers to flow in knowledge work is triggers. When to start the work.
Okay.
So each of those items in the in basket is going to be triggered. The knowledge worker is going to decide to themselves which thing they're going to work on first. Often. So because a value stream is made up of multiple jobs, almost always, you've got jobs performed by different people, often in different locations. They each have their own set of triggers. Those triggers, the chances that those triggers are going to be in alignment naturally are like zero.
It's like winning Keno. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. So what you have, that's the secret of working with a natural work group.
Gotcha.
Because until they have that aha, oh crap, it doesn't matter in and of itself. I can do my work perfectly, but if it's at the wrong time, it doesn't make any difference.
Doesn't make any difference. Yeah. And then the next
take those and extract them from that larger value stream, bring them down, and potentially even resequence some of them.
Right.
And so now I've constructed a value stream ideally composed of work that's approaching all value creating.
Yep.
And at least as best I can until to start with anyway. And then what that's going to do when you eliminate the non-value added stuff is you automatically are affecting lead time, typically in a good way.
Right.
So that's what I mean by connecting alignment. And also, remember I said we just have multiple jobs in a value stream.
Right.
So the alignment is how do we align the triggers? Can we now? Is there another way to do this work so there's only a single trigger at the beginning? Think of chain of dominoes, right?
Yeah.
So that's the idea of aligning the value creating fragments.
So what I'm going to do is we're starting to run out of time. I'm going to get you back on the show because a lot of these, I'm sure to some of the listeners are, conceptual kind of neat things, and they may have heard about a lot of these, but you really got to dive in. Robert, how do they find you? Tell our guests how they find you, your website, your book.
There's two ways, thank you for asking that.
Please.
So you can Google my name.
Yeah.
and it'll show the books and the websites probably. You can Google the company name or enter in.
Well, tell them your name again because maybe they didn't catch it.
Okay, so my name is Robert Damelio.
Yes.
My company name is the Bottom Line Group, and the book that we're talking about is the Basics of Process Mapping.
And this is the second edition. They should buy the second edition, not the first.
Yes. So the stuff we're talking about, that we talked about, absolutely the second.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because I wasn't smart enough to know that back in '95 when I wrote the first one.
Yeah.
So this is a function of what I've learned, right?
Yep.
So if you enter in my company name plus .com, it'll take you to the website. If you enter in the book name plus .com, it'll take you to a website just for the book. The book's available on Amazon. It's available through Productivity Press. In terms of helping people understand what we've been talking about, virtually all of it is from chapter 7 of that book.
Okay.
So, and it has a much more, it's got like 40 pages, right? So, of stuff that, each of the principles actually has guidelines, supporting guidelines. And so that chapter has 10 principles, 29 guidelines.
Okay.
That's how you can find me.
All right. And we're going to post you on the Lean Nation Facebook page. We're going to post you on LinkedIn, on Ustream, because this is a downloadable. So, Robert, you'll be able to go back, and we'll both be able to go back and look at the topics we didn't cover. So next time you're on, we can dive into some things. You can download these, share them with your friends. And I really appreciated you being on the Lean Nation today. I get engrossed in these conversations. We talked about a lot, but we still didn't even cover a lot. So I want to thank you very much for being on the Lean Nation today.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege.
Okay. And Lean Nation, next Wednesday, day before Thanksgiving, we're going to take a day off. But when we come back on that Thursday, November 30th, we have Jerry Bussell with us. And Jerry Bussell is a real driver. He was former operations lean guru at Medtronics for over 20 years, started the Lean Consortia down in Jacksonville, Florida, worked with the Lean Sheriff, has done a lot of profound stuff. He has his own consulting group now, and he's making an impact all over the globe. He's got a book coming out. So he's going to actually be in the studio here with us November 30th, and that's at 3 p.m. on the Lean Nation. And that's it for the Lean Nation today. We are over and out.